Both pots and pans are made out of clay. But the pot is different from the pan because of its structure. The material out of which they are made is the same clay, and that when the structure differentiates one body from another body, that body gains a new value, a distinct value. That distinct value by which a thing is what it is its dharma. The dharma of a pot is different from the dharma of a pan. The dharma of a hydrogen atom is different from the dharma of an oxygen atom. There also the variation comes out of their structural differences. So when there are structural differences, there also arises functional differences. Structure and function. We have a structure. This body of ours is structured in a certain manner. Every limb of it has its own specific structure, and that enables us to function that part for a specific purpose. Therefore, our ancient seers speak of this body as a dharma sadhanam, sharira madhyam khalu, dharma sadhanam. This body is mainly, in its first place, a receptacle of dharma. As I have a mouth shaped in a certain way, and I can bring the air of my lungs to my mouth and make certain movement of my tongue and lips, I can speak. You can speak. That is the dharma of the tongue. The function of speaking is possible because of its specific structure. So where the structure is fully reciprocated by the function for which that structure is made, there is a harmony. Your volition comes from one side. Will to do, will to perform, and automatically the performance takes place. When the sensory system is bringing to the core of your consciousness a certain message of what the environment is like, at the very core of your being there arises an idea that for your self-preservation you have to act in a certain manner. So the very message will just come through your sensory system, changes the pattern of its own impulses, nerve energy, and it passes through the motor system to some faculty and it reacts. So this is a continuous process, and in that we are so much used to it that we do not think that it is so marvelous, so wonderful. A person who has no disease of his lungs, a respiratory system, both consciously and unconsciously he is breathing, and he does not think of his breathing until there comes an obstruction in breathing. Similarly, there is a circulatory system in us where the blood is continuously flowing through the veins, it comes to the heart, and through the artery it goes back, and thus the circulation is going on. Until there is some constriction or something in the artery or the veins, or some clogging somewhere, we don't know anything about it. It goes on. So these are two main functions: circulation of blood, respiration of air or breath, and any stimuli received by the sense organs, if they can be conveyed to the brain without any difficulty, then we do not think it is a great marvel that our eyes can see, our ear can hear, etc. But when an obstruction comes, we call it a disease. So there can be a structural defect which can afflict function. There can be malfunctioning even when the structure is all right. There can be a dysfunction even though structurally the limbs are all there, the faculties are all there. And this we again divide into two aspects: a physiogenic malfunction or a psychogenic dysfunction. Earlier we have seen that what we call mind and body are not two separate things. One system, when we examine it from one pole, you call it mind. When you look at it from the other pole, you call it body. Actually, no line can be drawn anywhere and say up to this is mind and beyond that is body, or up to this is body and beyond that is mind. These are all arbitrary distinctions we draw for the sake of making things a little easy for us to understand. So this body-mind system is one. However, what we call Atman or spirit or Purusha is to be understood differently. Suppose we see a whole city mirrored in reflected in a mirror. We are not seeing the actual city, we are seeing only a reflection of the city. And it can be quite accurate. The materiality there is the mirror. The form of the city we see in it is because of light and shade. Only there is light there, and that light is illuminating so many objects, and the dimensionality of the objects make light falling at certain angles prominent and shades off into darkness, and these contours of an object causes certain differentiation in the light and shade illumination that is reflected, and we have learned through experience to decipher light and shade images into objects, although we never come across any object other than the impression that is received through our sense organs. Impressions are there. And suppose this mirror is not a clear medium, or it has some kind of a distortion because its surface is concave, or it is convex, or it has some irregularity, then there can be distortions in the images. Similarly, this psychophysical system, this mind-body system, at best is only like a mirror, and it can have various kinds of defects. And because of the defect, the image or the impression that you get may not exactly tally with the objects it is mirroring. And there is statistical approximation which you may call the normal mirroring, which we take for granted as objectively valid. And that objectivity, which all of us agree in the transactional world, is sound so far as our daily transactions are concerned. But that is not absolutely real. We are not here trying to understand what is absolutely real. We only want to know our own system, this body-mind system of ours. In the transactional world where you and I meet, and we describe a certain object and I describe and you recognize it, that serves our purpose. So the empirical world, which we appreciate with our sensory system, and about which you can draw many inferences, are all valid. The manner in which they come to us. But things change when there is a major malfunction in you or a dysfunction in you. Suppose a father receives an information about his son who is in another country, that something happened to his son. Nothing has happened to the father. Only he received a telegraphic message that something happened to the son. So for instance, those people who are now lying buried here under the hotel debris, their parents, their relatives abroad are all very much vexed. Here, it is not a physical illness of you. Nothing happened to your physical structure and that you cannot function. Here, we have a case of a psychogenic cause of disturbance by which the ease with which you function is taken away from you. You have become diseased. So there is a disease possible which originates from the deviation from the accepted norms of life. When a person goes from one country to another country, we have certain normal expectations that the plane will fly smoothly, it will land smoothly, and the relatives would receive them at the other end. They would be taken in a motor car to the other house, and they will spend a period of good life with friends, relatives. They will reboard, they will come back and rejoin. These are the normal expectations. But when this expectation is falsified by some event, it is a mental structure which you have made of events is affected. And that mind is sitting in you, in your brain, that is part of you. And that mind is now disturbed, or that part of you has become wrecked. And that wreckage afflicts your physical body. So you may faint, you may cry, etc. The main characteristic of disease is either pain of the mind or pain of the body. Can be either. So pain. What exactly is pain? That is very difficult to discern. A mountaineer who is climbing a place like Mount Everest or Annapurna, would say, some place where he knows that he may not get sufficient oxygen. There can be a glacier which can sweep him across, or there can be terrible winds. It can be very cold. These are all painful, but he has a will to face that, to surmount it. And every inch of gain which he makes in mounting gives him immense pleasure in spite of the physical fatigue, the physical pain he is undergoing. So the pain turns here into a challenge. And taking up that challenge gives him such a joy, such a sense of exhilaration, that the pain is nothing to him. So you cannot say that it is a mere sensation of a nerve that is painful. It is a sum total of all that is happening from outside and all that is happening from inside. When they cancel out each other, if a positive content is left with you to hold on as your sustaining principle, then it is not painful. And if it is negative, it is painful. So there is a physical pain and there is a psychological pain. And the psychological pain is resting more on the abstract than on the concrete, as in the case of physical pain. Even when when you consider physical pain, we speak of first-hand pain and secondary pain. When you are given a pinprick, that one moment where your nervous system is agitated by throwing up certain impulse, an electrical impulse, where the pin is gone, it's a first-hand pain. But the reverberation it makes dissipates soon, and the experiencing of the first-hand pain is thereafter repeated in your consciousness as a secondary pain or a psychological pain, and that lasts sometimes for a long time because fear becomes associated with it, and you may think of consequences, etc., and that even goes into a rational mind. Now we come to the other side of pain, where the disease is physical, not merely mental. There are great people who have withstood their physical pains, diseases, and their mind not afflicted very much with what happened to the physical body. When I was with Ramana Maharshi, in the last days of his illness, when he had the sarcoma of his left hand, which was giving shooting pain all over the body, in his face we do not experience the disturbance of pain. He receives you with the same serenity, and he is so graceful, but he had pain. But pain there has another meaning. Large areas of your consciousness could still be kept free of the impact of pain, and that consciousness could be radiant with a measure of grace in it or compassion in it, friendliness in it. Even some kind of happiness. But for our purpose, we first admit that this body of ours, which is so beautifully structured, is only a temporary device. It is not to go on forever. And even when we are spending many happy days and nights planning about our future and dreaming about so many beautiful things, the cause of a disaster may be slowly growing in it, brewing in it. Your heart may be getting into danger, and your lungs getting into danger, your brain getting into danger. What is growing there inside we do not know until some parts start dysfunctioning or malfunctioning. So disease is a fact of our life. This is what Patanjali wants to take notice of. Disease is a fact of life. And if disease is a fact of life, the difference between a healthy person and a person with a disease is a healthy person can plan, program, and carry out the program with full satisfaction, even though he may not be able to complete a program in a scheduled time. He knows that he can continue from there next day. He is not very dissatisfied. He knows of his ability to perform. That ability to perform, when that is struck by an unknown hand, you are shaken. You say, I want to do this, but somehow I cannot. You become shaken from within. Disease as such is not the greatest tragedy of life, but the impact of the disease on your volition. Your will begins to flag. You want to be willful, but you cannot. And when your volition is afflicted, you see these three aspects: mind, which is always of the nature of doubting; memory, the faculty of memory, which is always presenting before you associated memories; and the will to perform, where a judgment is giving its full support to what you want to carry out. These are all resting on your ego or sense of agency. This sense of agency, which gives all the energy, puts all the energy into your will, that goes anemic. You even start doubting whether you are going to live at all. Am I going to exist or non-exist? So your idea that you may not exist takes away from it its energy. Jung puts this question: from where does energy come? From which part of your body or mind energy is changed into, transformed into a momentum? So a couple of years ago, I met one of India's greatest physicists, or mathematician, George Sudarshan, and we were discussing about psyche, life, death, etc. Then he told me, many people think energy means something forceful. He said, no, energy is inert. It is inertial. But it is something like, say, frozen wax. But the frozen wax can melt, and then when it melts, it can burn, and thus it gives a lot of momentum. Similarly, there are frozen energy lying in us, just as you have a bank deposit. And if one fine morning you walk into your bank and wants to look at where your rupees which you deposited are there, they may not be there. But if you give them notice, they may bring the money you have deposited. The money is not just sitting there. Similarly, the energy in us is not sitting anywhere. There is a potential of it in us. That potential can suddenly become a reality. And when you do not have a disease, it is like a bank which has enough funds at its disposal. At a moment's notice, it can give you back your money. But if there is no money in the bank, there is a run on the bank, the bankers will be embarrassed. Similarly, you want to lift something, you cannot lift. You want to walk to a distance, you cannot walk. You want to speak out something, you cannot speak. Then you are shaken from within. So this is one of the major signs of a disease. Impossible to function as you like. Then that brings what we call in Sanskrit Daurmanasyam. Daurmanasyam is your mind turns more and more to the negative side of becoming pessimistic, instead of being optimistic and putting on more and more favorable data, you start seeing many negative signs. And one of the major negative signs is thinking of death. Am I going to die? If I die, what will happen to my family? What will happen to my business? What will happen to the various contracts I have taken? What will happen to the very many adjustments which are to be made? Thus, like many debtors knocking at your door, at this juncture of your losing your mind, all the negative forces come to you. It's called Daurmanasyam. Then what happens? Your best friend is your prana. The rhythm of the prana changes. You breathe hard, or you find difficult to breathe. Either you are breathing too fast and too quickly and the rhythm has changed. The other is you have to draw your breath consciously. See, if you want to breathe consciously, you can breathe in Take a long breath. You can retain it. Then you can breathe out and hold the breath outside and for a time, and then you can breathe in. This is a voluntary function. We spoke about it earlier. This is a voluntary function of breathing. That means in this brain of ours, there is one place where the function of breathing is regulated, can be regulated consciously, voluntarily. But if you hold your breath for a long time, there comes another force from inside which makes you breathe. That is not voluntary. That is autonomous. So your breathing is a system which is based on two pillars. One is a voluntary foundation and the other is an autonomous foundation. And when you are struck with disease and your mind is also afflicted, one of these collapses. Which one collapses? The autonomous becomes weak. When the autonomous becomes weak, that is a bad sign. Then the voluntary breathing has to struggle. It's just like a cart which is pulled by two bullocks, where one bullock suddenly goes lame and the other has to pull all by itself. A burden comes upon the voluntary aspect of your consciousness, but you are in a great difficulty. Because how exactly the autonomous system functions in you, you do not know. Though there is a reciprocity between the autonomous and the voluntary system in us, the autonomous or the unconscious functioning allows the conscious functioning to know many things which are useful for us to conduct our life, but it is a very niggardly relative, a niggardly friend. It does not give away all its secrets to the voluntary mind or the conscious mind. You see, from your wakeful consciousness, you go into something vague when you go into a dream. And even that consciousness or the dream is blotched out when you go into a coma or a deep sleep or death. So ultimately, everything has to merge backward. The mind has to merge in the memory, and the memory has to merge into the intellect, and the intellect has to merge in the ego, and the ego has to merge into unconscious, and the unconscious has to merge into the ground of consciousness. And therefore, most of the functions which are happening within your body and your mind in the unconscious has a great reservation to share its secrets with the external mind or the conscious mind, the conscious functioning, and the voluntary aspects. It's pulling back. We stand upright on our two legs when we are all right, but when we are diseased, we cannot stand like that. That balance is gone. Giddiness comes. You are asked to lie on horizontally. So the verticality of your body is to change into a horizontality. Functional uprightness goes away and its place is taken by more and more inertial states. It's a reconversion of the energy or the momentum. The energy that is put into momentum is taken back into an inertial state of energy. So this Shasva and Prashvasa is an indicative of what is going to happen in this state of disease. These are all symptomatic to an extent. Nature is very kind. Nature gives us very many warnings in our life. Any little sensation anywhere in the body is a warning. Suppose a small growth is coming somewhere where you never touch in your body, in your back, for instance. You even do not think that you have a back. But when that growth comes, somehow the hand goes and touches that. Or you feel some sensation, you want someone to look there and see if there is anything there. Thus, nature gives you notice. And when you have noticed it, that things are not going right, you have a responsibility to repair yourself. If something has happened to the structure, you have to see that the structure is repaired. If some function is not happening, you should see that the function is again resumed. And that is a responsibility which belongs entirely to your conscious mind. But the conscious mind does not know how to heal yourself. And the healing has to come again from the unconscious. So a potent yogi who is stopped halfway by his disease has to learn a new way of relating his conscious mind with his unconscious mind. We, of course, do not speak of conscious mind and unconscious mind. Rather, we speak of our empirical consciousness with our conceptual consciousness. How the empirical consciousness tunes itself with the conceptual consciousness. And the conceptual consciousness in turn allows itself to be modeled by a causal consciousness. These are the terms of Indian psychology. And beyond the causal is the ground of consciousness. The plurality is where you find everything is empirically presented through the five senses, the five organs of action, very many people with whom you associate, and the number of programs into which you go. That is the world of plurality, or the world of transaction is a world of plurality. And it is there now you are you have met with this new disaster. The first thing is a withdrawal from there. Withdrawal from your empirical world, withdrawal from your transactional world, withdrawal from your active conscious observation, etc. What do you do when you are tired and you want your body to be rested, you go to sleep. How do you sleep? Can you sleep by yourself with any effort? No. Sleep is there only when there is no effort. All your sense of agency are to be laid down. You make a submission. In this case also, you have to trust that your life as a whole system, a whole organism, is shown to you only at its very tip, but most of it is held away from you. Go back to the light. The light that illuminates the world, and then that world is reflected in a mirror and you are seeing everything as an impression in the mirror. The primary factor there, which is responsible for all those impressions, is the light. And that light is homogeneous. There is no division in it, no plurality in it. So from the plurality of your mind, of your external consciousness, you are pulling yourself to, or you are allowing yourself to sink into a greater depth of you, where it goes beyond the mind, beyond your memory, beyond your intellect, beyond your ego, to a pure light. And that is considered as Atman or Ishvara. I already gave a description of Ishvara the other day. We are not speaking here of Ishvara of religions, God of religions, but the one principle out of which everything else has manifested. You can understand it scientifically, you can understand it rationally, you can also understand it with faith, so many things. So it is you, the individual, the person here and now in a body, if that can be considered as a point in time and space, from there you are expanding into the infinitude of that one. So there is a dialogue established between the finite point of consciousness and the infinite unconscious, or infinite depth of your everybody's true being. Yoga suggests this as the measure that you have to take. Whatever is your cause of your disease, etc., you are, while you have every reason to avoid the furthering of it, if that is caused by some negligence, neglect, what you have neglected, you can find out and you can rectify it. It is very reasonable. Suppose you have taken a wrong food, you can avoid that food. Suppose you have overworked, you can lessen the hours of your work. Suppose you have undertaken a program which you cannot carry out, you can scrape it. You are in conflict with a person, you can resolve the conflict. You are having too much of an emotional drain, then you can cultivate resignation. Thus there are a number of things which you can do. But these are all on the surface. All these kind of little arrangements which you make are only a surface event. Deep down, You have to seek what goes beyond death, what goes beyond your personal destruction. Ultimately, nobody is destroyed. That's only a transformation. Even when one person is taken away from the setup of the world does not cease to be. That is somehow it is carried on by common effort. We have not come out of nothing, we are not going into nothing. So a more philosophical attitude comes here. Here there is a sense of resignation which is not of an inert person, but of an intelligent being. A lot of optimism is built up. Instead of the negative feeling, I am dying, I am worthless, I am useless, etc., they say, now I am in the very lap of this great protective energies of the world which are seeping in from all sides. Your faith is increased. Not the superstitious kind of faith I am speaking of. Even when you take a medicine, how does that medicine heal you? Does the medicine heal you? It never heals. If the jiva in you, if the life principle in you is waning, no medicine can retrieve it. However great your doctor is and however potent your medicine is, it cannot. You have to respond to it. And that response is coming from a certain depth. And it is to that depth you are now diving. And you are handing over everything to that depth. Not as an idiot giving up everything, but as a very, very wise person who is saying the very route through which the sap of life should come to you. This, Patanjali says, is meditating on the One. You are busy every day with many things, and now from that you are going to the One which has become the many. And that is not through an active function, it is passive. It is not through an intellectualization of anything, it's not the intellect that works. It's the totality of your being that you recognize. Always the question comes to us, how do you do it? We are not speaking of something which is not doing, not even knowing rationally, but just being. We often forget that we have a being because we are in the process of becoming all the time. For this reason, we are asked to ruminate a little on how we have become what we are. When we are not entirely ourselves before the conception of this praja or this being in the mother's womb, because half of myself was in my father, half of myself was in my mother. Then what identity I had in those days? And when my father and mother, they united, and out of their union, I become a fetus in the womb of my mother. Apart from the gene that I brought from my father, the chromosomes that I brought from my mother, was there something else also added on to it? It is here Western study in psychology and Eastern study in psychology differ. The farthest we can go in the Western study is fully to some objective thing, like say amino acid, various kinds of protein blocks, enzymes, undetected chemicals which goes into enzymes, etc. Are they intelligent enough to make a collective whole? If you analyze the component parts of the genes, like say DNA, RNA, etc., are they intelligent beings to put together all these limbs and make a whole person and give a certain program to that person to have a goal in life and to work out that whole? That is, you are asking for too much. It is there you find one meaning lending, meaning giving, supreme, which is in and through all this. I am not asking you to think of a God sitting somewhere and measuring out your fate to you. That is fatalism. But in and through, whatever is happening, for instance, now I am talking. What is talking in me? Is it the DNA talking or RNA talking? Or some subatomic particles talking? But are they all not there? They are all there. You see, this body of ours, this mind of ours, so-called system, is a colony of millions and millions of cells. And each cell is autonomous. And each cell has a mind of its own. And that it is not the plurality of minds that speak to you, and it is not the plurality of minds in you which listen, but it is just one mind. And that unity of mind which is behind all this, that is also suggestive of that unity factor which is behind the entire universe. So when you are not in a proper state of health, instead of remembering your very grassroots, the very root of your life, you are thinking of salvation by paying a doctor's bill, and you think the doctor can cure. New equipments have come to the hospital, and those are very ingeniously made. And you put all your faith in it and you struggle and struggle. And you are tortured in so many ways, and yet you never think that there is another real sustainer of life. That is yourself, your own greater being. So this is Patanjali's request to us, advice to us. Don't become panicky. This body anyway someday has to go. You cannot stop it. But if only by your own mistakes, your own wrong karmas, your own wrong actions, that you are bringing up upon yourself all these consequences, it won't just go away like that. You can still perform many more meaningful tasks within the limits of its ability by sinking deep into yourself and seeing your basis, resonating with it. It is this resonation which he calls meditation of the one truth. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.